Hello, and welcome to the How We Do Digital Ministry podcast sponsored by Faith Growth. I'm your host, Charlotte Elia, and on this podcast, we talk to leaders who are out in the world engaging folks through digital ministry. Today, I am delighted to have Pastor Solomon Missouri here with me. He's one of my favorite Twitter pastors. He's my Twitter pastor, maybe. I don't know. But I'm delighted to have him with us, and he has so much wisdom to share. So, Pastor Solomon, I want to jump right in it and just give us some background on, what led you to Twitter, how you think about using this tool.
Okay. So I'm not really sure what led me to Twitter. I think that I was not doing social media at all. So I think I had maybe a Facebook page that I never used, and I had a Instagram page that I never used. And then one day, from an old choir group that I was in college, and I mean, you're talking almost like 20 years ago, they sent me a message or something, and it had like a link to Twitter in it or whatever. And I think that a lot of them were on the site. So I said, okay, I'll join in or whatever. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was attempting to do. I was just like, hey, this is a place where you talk to yourself. So I'm good at that. I can talk to myself. And so I did that for like 10 years. For 10 years, I was just talking to myself. And I found that in the process of talking to myself, other people started talking to me, and people that I didn't know, and people that I did know, and people that I did not know as well as I could have known them were opening themselves up to me, and I was also opening myself up to them. And in that process, I was actually still in seminary when I started on Twitter. So a lot of my earlier tweets were like me just having like eye-opening revelations about like scripture and ministry and path and calling, like all of those things that we're taught to look forward to. And so we fast forward maybe 12 or 13 years later, I am intentionally using the tool of Twitter in order to foster community, to look at how we think about faith, how we intersect the ideas of faith and life, the things that we are looking to accomplish as Christians. I am introducing the ideas of progressivism into faith to understand and to make a place for individuals who are trying to bridge both the politics and the praxis of faith life. And what does that look like in the public forum? And so I'm attempting to do that through wit and through whimsy and through humor, sometimes through heartbreak, and attempting to do it through love. And so that's my hope and my prayer as far as how I am emitting, translating, putting myself out there. And I hope that's how I'm being received as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And you, just so everybody knows, you are also a full-time pastor at a congregational ministry as well.
Yes. I'm a full-time pastor in the great city of Durham, North Carolina. My church is Kyle's Temple AME Zion Church, 409 Dunston Avenue. Yay, Bull City.
Okay, all right. How do you see those two areas intersect? Do they? Is Pastor Solomon the same in the congregation as I see him online?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
For good or for bad?
Yeah.
Pastor Solomon is the same in congregational life as he is on Twitter, which is, I am a curious person. I am a person who loves to interact and engage. I am a person that plays with taboo, who understands taboo, who understands how language is used to divide, but also how language is used to connect. And so I am effectively trying to immerse myself, not above the culture and not below the culture, but in the culture, because that's the only way that we can love creation, is that if we are active participants in creation. I don't have the answer for creation, I am called to care for creation. Those are two dynamically different views or perspectives that we have to choose from. That either I have the solution, that means I'm above creation, or I am a part of I'm a part of affirming creation, which means that I'm in it and I'm empowered to love.
Wonderful. So, a practical question, as a full-time pastor and this ubiquitous almost presence on Twitter, how do you manage the time that you spend on social media? Do you plan it out, or how is it just part of your
no,
day?
not really. It catches me as I come. Like there's some things that like I definitely write down and say, okay, I'm probably going to do a thread about that. Bay leaves, right? So nobody cares about bay leaves, but it was interesting to me. I was cooking one day and I thought about bay leaves, and it became like something that people were, again, chose to connect over. But like small innocuous things like that allow me to have in ways or in routes to like other substantive issues, right? So like a person's right to choose what happens to their body. So I'm creating the groundwork for greater conversations by leveling us with common humanality, points of human, just kind of silly stuff, right?
Right.
But I want to be a voice to those other things. But how do I open your heart? How do I allow you to see that this is not a voice that wants to harm you, not a voice that wants to do a bait and switch with you, but I actually want to be in honest communication and community with you. And so I have to open my heart first. Individuals who desire to receive a hug have to give a hug. And I'm trying to open myself up for the possibility that I don't have to know it all. And mine is not a seat of authority. Mine is a seat of affirmation.
As part of that vulnerability you're talking about in that authenticity space there, I wonder, Twitter is not always the most friendly place in the world. So I wonder how you deal with kind of haters or bad faith comments or questions, and both as a strategy online, but personally too. Does that take a toll at some point?
Well, no, I touch grass.
Okay.
And I'm part of that is, and that's not to say that individuals who don't step away have some type of whatever. That's not that. I step away, right? There's some things that people say to me or say about tweets that I've had, or just have overwhelming feelings about. I have to understand and remember, one, they don't know me, right? Yeah. They are completely separated or distanced from who I am. Two, I don't know them.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I'm presupposing is that there are other sets of life data points that are impacting them, impacting their identities, impacting their feelings. And they bring they superimpose all of those life data points onto what other people are saying. So I don't know them. They don't know me. I don't know them. Then the other part about it is, the final thing is, Twitter doesn't have nuance, right? So as good as people use their words, Twitter does not have nuance, right? There's literally no, accent marks or, inflection marks that tell us how these people are saying, or, other than using all caps. And so for me, some things I don't respond to because I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So because I don't know what you're doing, I step back, either decide to, one, I don't want to be a vector for miscommunication or misinformation. So if it's something that I tweeted that was like wrong, like from a scientific or data point, I'll delete that, right? Because it's not worth it to me. And then there's some things I just choose not to engage with because I think that maybe a person is speaking from their experiences, which is fine, but our personal experiences are not a platform for public policy. And so I won't kind of engage that. Sometimes I'm looking for a fight, and I'll acknowledge that, right? Because I have feelings as well. And so I will fight. No, I will. But acknowledging that also helps us to say, okay, there are friends and heavenly helpers that say, okay, you don't need to fight. This is not a fight that you need, right? So those are all the things that I actually employ in order when it comes to my engagement on social media.
Okay, so speaking more about the fights you and others want to get into, how do you find, I see you often, challenging points of, let's say, toxic, abusive theology, particularly coming from those voices that seem to take up so much more online space than the rest of us. How do you find them? Are they peripheral to you? Do you look for them sometimes? Or
actually, I believe that I'm a vector for like trash opinions.
Oh, good. Good for you.
I'm like magnetic north for bad ideas. I don't know how it finds me, but it definitely does. There are some people who I follow, very few of them who I follow, who just like, continuously have bad ideas, right? Or harmful ideas, right?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Harmful ideas. And like I'll challenge them and push back on them because I understand that power and platform allows us to perpetuate abuse. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in order for us to model healthy faith, those things do need to be challenged. And let me also say this. Christians have a history of challenging harmful ideas. The idea of liberation in the gospel is a challenge to a harmful idea. Mm-hmm. Right? And so being or trying to suggest that, it's not Christian if you fight. No. Iron sharpens iron. I don't understand, do you understand what sharpening is when we're saying that? Not you understand, but when people are saying that, do they understand that is an abrasiveness, a rubbing against, a tension between two ideas in order to improve their outcome and improve their efficiency, right? So if you're never sharpened, if you're never challenged, right, you don't become efficient and effective in your ultimate pursuit, which is, again, to spread the toolkit of the gospel, which is the love of Christ. Sometimes I think that we believe that the toolkit of the gospel is rules and regulations. Mm. And that's not the package of the gospel. The package of the gospel is you are loved, you are affirmed, you are cared for, you are divinely, you are heavenly formed, right? So that's the toolkit of the gospel. And we desire to sharpen the way that we deploy the toolkit of the gospel through love and intentional critique and correct of one another.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I love these reminders. I always feel better talking to the guests on this podcast. I hope that everybody else gets fueled the way that I do. Are there any general misconceptions you think out there about the way you use Twitter or the experience of Twitter, particularly, for pastors who might want to get involved?
Well, I think that one of the issues that people have when they're coming to Twitter as a platform is that pastors already have two strikes, against us when we're coming into a place, right? One, there is like this institutional idea of what a pastor should be, what a pastor should say, and what a pastor should engage with, right? I don't care about those, right? I am from those institutional ideological places. I get it, I understand, but I am choosing to say no. I want to be a part of a verdant society. I want to be part of a vibrant society. And I am using the resources that I have been afforded to make that happen. So again, I want to get away from that strike of pastors are supposed to talk about this thing or they're supposed to do that thing. No, my job is to make sure that I'm caring for people in real and intentional ways. That's the job. To shepherd, to pastor, is to care. But then the other strike that pastors have against us is when we not. It's not just a strike against perception. It's a strike against praxis. How it is that we actually practice pastoring in the social ecosystem that is known as social media, right? So we come in and we have like our pastor sayings, like God is good today, guys, and hold up your Bible and, wave it around and, I believe a blessing is coming for you. And so, right, what happens is when we use those tropes of language, we are effectively not considering the fact that like life has been difficult for a long time and it just didn't start in the pandemic, right? And so we're not, we don't allow people to have bad days. We don't allow people to have like difficult emotions or feel down or anything. It's always on go. We like Joel Osteen because he smiles all the time, right? But so do idiots. And so it's not, something that no, it's fine. Just let it go by. Let it go by. So it's not as if, that's a skill set. It's effectively a play. It's something that's rehearsed. And if we're going to have a vibrant faith, it has to be real. And that means you're like mountains and valleys. And sometimes all of the mountains aren't good. And sometimes all of the valleys aren't bad. They're just different seasons of our lives. So, we have the pitfall of perception. We have the pitfall of praxis. But then we have the pitfall of performance, right? I don't want to perform as a pastor. I don't want to wear the suits. I don't have on a suit today. Just that. I have no desire to perform as a pastor, to perform as a Christian. I don't want people to think that I'm this kind of way, or that I've never been angry or never been mad, or don't have any type of personal flaws or failures. That's not my deal. And that's also not to say that I'm not actively in search of a better me, right? I'm still in the process, right? And so, but people get this performance and this performative aspect, and they think that, we're perfect and our homes are perfect and our children are perfect and our families are perfect and everything's good to go. And, you got to come up on Sunday morning and say all the right speeches and, say all the right words and have the right attitude. And no, I'm just pushing back and saying, no, I'm not going to do your pastor performance for you. I'm going to be a real, tangible human person that believes in the possibility of the divine. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes my faith is hard. Sometimes it doesn't always work out the way I think it should, but I'm still trying.
I really appreciate that. And I know it's not performative, but it is so, alluring maybe. The way that you share some failures or silly things that happen to you personally. Mm-hmm. I think I found you first from a thread about being a little over moisturized and slipping on some stairs.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay. This is, I think, a favorite now, famous, but then it was like, okay, this is a regular guy, a funny guy. And then I think that vulnerability opens or invites the rest of us into it to be able to hear the other things that you share. Is your church website a mess? It could be difficult to navigate or doesn't represent you well. You want your site to be more than just an online brochure, but you don't know how to make that happen. Imagine having a beautiful, easy-to-use website for your church that helps people find the information they need about your church and its ministries quickly and easily. Faith Growth will build a beautiful, effective, user-friendly website for your church in as little as 4 weeks. Our process includes everything from a free initial consultation to the full setup and training so you can grow your digital presence and reach your community. Schedule a consultation at faithgrowth.com, or if you're not ready yet, get your free guide explaining the process to get a website that reaches people and gets results by going to faithgrowth.com/guide. I think you use threads really masterfully to keep that conversation going and to interact with people. I wonder, do you think at the start of like, this is going to be a thread, this isn't a one-off, I've got a bunch to say about this, or is that more organic?
Okay, so threads go two ways. Either one is something that I've been thinking about for a long time and it's like going down in the journal, like this is something I need to thread about. Or two, a part of me sharing the loaf of humanity is also sharing its heartbreak. And I find that there is the possibility of healing even in heartbreak. Because sometimes we think that there's only like happiness and healing go hand in hand, but sometimes like, you know, you gotta let your heart break a little. And the things that like break my heart, I want people to have access to, because I know that like we're sharing heartbreak. And so that would be a thread. Like if I see something that resonates with somebody and like that same thing like hits me, like I'm a thread about that. Some things I don't talk about at all. And it's not because I don't care about them, it's because I simply don't have a knowledge base in order to expand that conversation. So again, knowing that I got a little bit of platform, whatever, on Twitter, I don't want to take that conversation in the direction that it does need to go, right? But the things that I do know about and that I have some experience with and that touch me and that touch other people, like I'm gonna like either make room for my thoughts and feelings, or then my thoughts and feelings may make room for somebody else to say something that's like really powerful and poignant. And so they might thread off of my threads, which is cool because I'll retweet it or whatever, because I want people to have that attention and like let people feel that voice, right? Because like a voice is weight. And so I want that witness to emerge. And sometimes when it comes to threading, like you just don't know if like where it would come from. It'll just be like, oh, I think I could be funny here, or I think I found something ironic. Or again, a lot of my humor comes from the idea of dissonance and distance, right? So people think it's funny because the pastor is talking about it. That makes it just ironically funny. And so my distance from a certain subject because of my professional and my calling, my volition and calling, make it fun, just ironically funny there, right? Or then the dissonance idea of there might be a person who's seeing something like with a perspective, but then I want to like usurp that or like subvert that. I want to subvert that idea and kind of flip it. And then from a marginalized aspect, using wit and whimsy, try to see if I can turn it a bit just so it can be like ironic, but at the same time, like maybe thought-provoking, right? Maybe this is something that I can do in a different way. So those are the ways that I try to consider and think through like threading. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's your brain. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Can you tell me something about your use of going live?
Okay, so I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to going live. I'll just be honest with you. But I have a Twitter friend, and she is hilarious, right? Like most Black women on Twitter are like amazing.
You got to drop the handle now.
Yeah, I'll drop the handle. Okay. She's not on Twitter right now, so I'll make sure I drop the Instagram thing. But so effectively, she would always do stuff like she was talking about one time her birth control, and she said she was doing this thing in her head where she was like influencing her birth control. So she went on live and she did like this. she did the Instagram like influence thing. I was like, this is fantastic. This is the greatest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And she's talking about birth control. And she's, describing it in ways which, like are like a trend or, something she said to take birth. This was before Roe v. Wade, I promise you. So I saw like her doing, I was like, I like things. I can do this. So I would just kind of go live occasionally to, so like show some things that I love. I've done it with my comic books or with some anime figures, or maybe even like I love perfumes and colognes and fragrances and stuff like that. So I'll do it with that. Last year I started posting some of my sermons and on Sunday mornings. And so we do that again, because there's overwhelmingly a lot of harmful theology that is espoused and pressed forward in the social media space. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much helpful theology, not helpful, thoughtful. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure of how much thoughtful theological preaching and talking and dream casting that exists in that space. So I said, okay, well, I have a church and we also have to record because it's a pandemic on Sunday. So, hey, here, Twitter, try that out. And so that's something that, we've been doing occasionally. We just brought it back last Sunday. But again, it's just to try to connect with people on a deeper level. Sometimes again, people need to see that, the faithful life is not just a life of, like knocking on doors and, holding up your Bible and being weird. Sometimes it's just like eating ice cream and saying, hey, this is pretty good. We can, like, the world is burning, but this ice cream is really tasty.
Like, yeah, celebrating those places you can pull over and get a plate.
Right. Yes, you have been. So, okay, like during the pandemic, people stopped making plates on the side of the road. But as people who follow me from like back in the day know, I am good for like stopping at the side of the road and getting food from strangers. I will do it. I will eat that. I've had people to bring me pickles. I made a friend by somebody bringing me pickles to my home. I know that's not safe, but it's happened. It's what happened, right? The lady brought me pickles. It was wonderful. Hers are great pickles. I wish I had some more of those. So again, allowing our lives to be accessed, to be touched, right? To be felt, and to be enjoyed is important. And that's a part of witness as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't have a word. Sometimes I don't, like, I'm not just walking around, tuned into heaven all the time. Hopefully I am sometimes, like at least on Sunday, fingers crossed. But sometimes I just, sometimes the faithful life is just being yourself.
What has surprised you most about your work on Twitter? Maybe an encounter or just the general?
I don't know. I guess it's that people think that it is work. It is work, right? It is trying, the effort of holding space for people who have, one, either been harmed by organized religion, for people who are exhausted by it, for people who don't feel as if they fit anymore because we have told them what fit looks like. For people who have been ostracized and cast out and who have seen others ostracized and cast out, to say, no, you don't have to be any of those things. That's not required for me to be in relationship, to be in love with, to be in community with you. Who the divine has created you to be is enough for me. And we don't have to agree upon Sky Daddy. We don't, it's fine. You're okay. It is not my goal to convince you that anything else exists. My goal is you are the person before me, and God has called me to love and affirm the person before me. That's as far as I can go. Where I feel and my personal beliefs and so forth and so on, that I am called to love you as a real and intentional person.
We're almost out of time. So I'm wondering, going to give you some space here for some final thoughts. I think particularly for, let's say, folks listening who are considering getting into this space here.
Ears are the most important tool in ministry. And before we can love something efficiently and deeply and honestly, we have to use our ears, not our Bibles, not our theology, not the frameworks that we've been given, but to love something requires your ears. So I pray for Christians who are seeking to use this space and to affirm others and to be in digital ministry or virtual ministry or social media ministry. I'm praying that we use our ears.
Excellent. Thank you. So important. Well, thank you so much, Solomon, for chatting with me today. Solomon, where do you want to be found online?
I did not know we were using our made-up names when people created Twitter. I was like, I'm just gonna put our real name out there. But I am all over the internet at actually Solomon, Missouri. That is my real name. That is not a made-up name. I'm not a cowboy. That's not a Western name, or it's not my wrestling name.
It's a great name. It's a great name. You got to take it as a compliment when people doubt the veracity of that name. I had known
we were using our made-up names. I would have named myself like Blueberry Custard or something else or something. Because I mean, all of you all have amazing names. I just have Solomon.
Oh no, I'm just Charlotte Elia. I did the same thing.
I thought you were a character from like a book. So yeah, I mean, Solomon, Missouri, at Solomon, Missouri. I think my Twitter name right now is Chuckalisa Cheer Chaplain. That's only because I love P-Valley. So yeah, that's where I am now. But you can search for me all over the internet or Counts Temple Amy Zion Church in Durham, North Carolina. So that's who we are.
Thanks again. Thank you to everybody listening. We want to invite everyone listening to join us in our private Facebook group, How We Do Digital Ministry. That link is in the show notes, as well as links to Pastor Solomon online there. That Facebook group is a great place to join with colleagues to discuss all things digital ministry, on the other 6 days of the week when you aren't listening to this podcast. But until next week, peace and blessings to you all.